जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी माधव गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोधनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोधनन्दन यशोधनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरा वनचारी यमुनातीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Ghora Nitai Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribol Nitai Gaura Haribol Nitai Gaura Nitai Gaura Haribol Gaura Haribol Nitai Gaura Haribol Nitai Gaura Haribol Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from the 4th canto, 30th chapter, text number 8. So since we don't have it written on the board, it's maybe good to have your mobile phones. So 4th canto, 30th chapter, 30, and text number 8. Okay, then let's start reading. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Varam Vninidvam Badhram Vo. Yuyame Nripanandana. Sauhardhena Pritag Dharmas. Tushtoham Sahridhena Va. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Varam Vrinidvam Badhram Vo. Yuyame Nripanandana. Sauhardena Prithak Dharmas. Tushtoham Sauhridhena Vaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Varam Vrinidvam Bhadram Vo. Yuyam me nripanandana. Sauhardhena Prithak Dharmas. Tushtoham Sauhridhena Vaha. Devotees. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Param Virinidvam Bhadram Vo. Yuyam me nripanandana. Sauhardhena Prithak Dharmas. Tushtoham Sauhridhena Vaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Varam Vrinidvam Bhadram Vo. Yuyam me nripanandana. Sauhardhena Prithak Dharmas. Tushtoham Sauhridhena Vaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Varam Vrinidvam Bhadram Vo. Yuyam me nripanandana. Sauhardhena Prithak Dharmas. Tushtoham Sauhridhena Vaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Varam Vrinidvam Bhadram Vo. Yuyam me nripanandana. Sauhardhena Prithak Dharmas. Tushtoham Sauhridhena Vaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Varam, benediction. Vrinidvam, ask. Bhadram, good fortune. Vaha, of you. Yuyam, you. Me, from me. Nripanandanaha, O sons of the king. Sauhardhena, by friendship. Apritak, non-different, dharmaha, occupation, tushtaha, pleased, aham, I, sauhridhena, by friendship, vaha, of you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear sons of the King, I am very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I am so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me. Purport. Since the sons of King Prachina Barhishat were all united in Krishna consciousness, the Lord was very pleased with them. Each and every one of the sons of King Prachina Barhishat was an individual soul, but they were united in offering transcendental service to the Lord. The unity of the individual souls attempting to satisfy the Supreme Lord or rendering service to the Lord is real unity. In the material world, such unity is not possible. Even though people may officially unite, they all have different interests. In the United Nations, for instance, all the nations have their particular nation ambition, and consequently they cannot be united. This unity between individual souls is so strong within this material world that even in a society of Krishna consciousness, members sometimes appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning toward material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited. In any circumstance, this makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kinds of benediction to his devotees. As indicated in this verse, we can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Prachina Barhishat. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Tatatishvam Patantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadharubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktagyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So once again, welcome to today's morning class. So in this verse, now the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, he directly appears to the sons of Prachina Parishad after them making austerity in the sea for 10,000 years. So now the Lord appears and he indicates the sons as Nripanandana, Nri meaning human and Pa meaning protector. So he indicates the sons as the sons of the protector of the humans, meaning Nripa, in other words, means king. So he indicates them in such a manner. And then he's especially pleased of them because they do devotional service, they practice devotional service together and in such a unity and harmony. So that's pretty much the main topic of this verse, basically. So in the first half of the verse, the Lord says, Varam Vrinidvam Badram Vo Yuya Me Nripanandana. So he says, my dear sons of the king, I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me. And then he continues, Sauhardena Pratak Dharmas. All of you are engaged in one occupation, and that's devotional service. Tushtoham Sauhridena Va. And then he ends it with, I am very pleased by your friendly relationships. So now the Lord is pleased by the sons of Prachina Brahi, and he decides to appear in front of them, and he grants them any benedictions they ask for, because he is happy by the devotional service, and especially pleased by their friendly relations. So now I want to say some little details about Prachina Barhi. His name is actually Barhishad, the actual name of his, but Prachina got added to him because he's a long-living king. Prachina means long-living, and Barhishad is just his name. So he got the name of Prachina Barhishad because he's quite an old king, ruling for quite a long period by now. And then what happened? He had 10 sons, and he decided to send them to forest for tapasya, or for austerity. The reason for this is because they grew up their lives in royal opulences in a palace, and the reason for them to go to the forest is to learn or develop some sense of detachment. Because living in such an opulence, it's difficult for someone to eventually develop some sort of detachment. So this was one of the main reasons for the king to send them to the forest. And also one reason is that they can learn or practice austerity, how to do austerity, and how to perform austerity. And after their austerity, the princes, in this case, they usually come back and they start ruling some part of the country. But eventually, after ruling, they have to detach from it and go to the forest and give their lives to the Lord and perfect their lives and go back home, back to Godhead. So in order to do that, they need some practice. They have to know what to do, how to do. So that's the reason why the king actually sent them to the forest for some practice. So now, in order of their father, they went to the sea to perform austerities. And on the way there, they met Lord Shiva, which we were also reading before. And then he spoke the Rudra Gita to them. And eventually, they go to the sea, they do their austerities, and they follow Lord Shiva's instructions, which were given in the Rudra Gita. And then eventually the Lord is pleased with them, and then he appears. And for friendship or unity, there are different words in Sanskrit, and every one of them has subtle differences. There's, for example, the word mitra, Sakha is also quite known, and Bandhu, for example, is another word. But Srila Prabhupada explains quite in some purports the word Suhrita. And Suhrita means, Su means close, and Hrita means heart. Hrit in this sense, Hrit, Hridaya, heart. And that means someone who is close to the heart. He uses this term a lot. And who is close to our heart physically? There's the Paramatma, right? So here Prabhupada uses in the Bhagavad Gita, you can find this in the verse Bhoktaram Yagitabasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Nyatva Mam Shantim Richati. So here in the translation it is said, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate benefactory of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace of the fangs of material miseries. So here is clearly stated that Suhridam, the word is again mentioned, someone who is close to our heart. And in this case, Krishna is the ultimate benefactor and well-wisher of everyone. So I also found like another indication of Suhridam, or someone who is close to our heart, which was also mentioned in the 4th canto, 28th chapter, so we actually passed it. And there is indicated that the king Puranjana was dragged by the force of Yavana, but out of his ignorance he could still not remember his best friend, well-wisher, which was actually the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, which is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this instance, it's again mentioned that we should actually more and more focus and try to see the Lord as our best well-wisher and have him as our best friend, and be able to serve him fully and surrender unto him completely. And the speciality of this, the significance of this verse is actually that the sons of Prajna Parishad, they were united in Krishna consciousness. So due to their unity, the Lord was pleased, not by their individualism or their own efforts, but by their unity and their efforts to serve the Lord together. That was the mood by which he was pleased. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the first paragraph, I will read that part again. Since the sons of Prajna Parishad were all united in Krishna consciousness, the Lord was very pleased with them. Each and every one of the sons of King Prajna Parishad was an individual soul, but they were united in offering transcendental service to the Lord. The unity of the individual souls attempting to satisfy the Supreme Lord or rendering service to the Lord is real unity. So here Prabhupada actually, he writes the essence, the whole essence of this verse in the purport. So he again mentions that real unity is when we come together to serve the Lord. And in order to please the Lord, we have to act together and put away our differences and serve the Lord in such a manner. And then Prabhupada continues, in the material world, such unity is not possible. Even though people may officially unite, they all have different interests in the United Nations. For instance, all the nations have their particular national ambitions, and consequently, they cannot be united. So as we can see, when there is some material interest, there is a difficulty to unite. For example, Prabhupada now gave a very practical example with the United Nations. So here, in this indication, there's every country, they might call them as United Nations, but every country has their own goals. Everyone strives for something different. Everyone has different interests, different ways of showing themselves to the public. So there is no unity, and they all don't have like a collective goal, which makes it very different and difficult, of course, for a unity to form. And then Prabhupada continues, this unity between individual souls is so strong within this material world that even in a society of Krishna consciousness, members sometimes appear to disunite due to their having different opinions and leaning towards material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is not to be taken as spiritual. So here Prabhupada says that there is possibilities for two opinions. So let's say one may have an opinion on maybe this seat, maybe they want to change the color, and one says, let's keep it like this, and another devotee says, let's change the color to a darker color. And then there is two interests, but eventually the goal is the same, and the goal is actually for this seat to serve devotees, for them to sit on it and eventually practice spiritual life or whatever. But having two opinions can also unite devotees if the goal remains the same. If they put away the differences, they can again unite to serve the Lord in that sense. But if there is some hint of material energies influence, for example, if someone is not able to let loose, or they are arguing, in that sense, that creates an awkward situation, and then it's clearly, you can see that they are not seeing the ultimate goal. They are not trying to serve the Lord directly, but their senses and their idea and their ego. So if actually two people come together and they try to serve the Lord, one may give in the sense of that they try to solve this problem and just serve the Lord instead of arguing and making such a fuss about it. So, and Prabhupada, for example, also uses one famous phrase of Prabhupada is also, you can please me by cooperating with each other. So this is quite a famous statement of Srila Prabhupada. So here, this is, for example, quite connected to this verse. So we can improve our service, we can improve our movement, and we can improve everything just by cooperating and seeing the higher goals. Instead of our personal interests, if we see Krishna as the center, it's way easier for us to serve the Lord in that sense. So, and then we move on to the last section of the purport, where it says, those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited in any circumstances. This makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kind of benedictions to his devotees. As indicated in this verse, we can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Prachina Parishad. So here the key is clearly that we have to be Krishna conscious all the time, which is actually quite difficult because the material influence is very hard and it's actually quite a challenge to be Krishna conscious, especially if you have so many distractions and everything. But the essence of this verse is pretty much that relationships are important and that we should keep them up and try to serve the Lord in the best way. And in the end, we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, meaning He won't be happy if we have conflicts between each other, but rather He is happy when we unite and serve Him. As it is stated, Jivera Svarupahoy Nityera Krishna Dasa. So our eternal position is actually to serve the Lord. And the beautiful thing about Krishna consciousness is that we form our friendships and our friends because of the Lord. So usually when we meet someone in the temple, it's because of the Lord. We come together because of the Lord. So and I was listening to one lecture of His Holiness Radharad Maharaj, and he was mentioning there that it's quite difficult to put away one's ego, prestige, and everything in order to solve a little problem. And he mentioned also that the best way to become Krishna conscious is to be humble. Trinada Pisunichena. Because by being humble, you can easily give in. You put your self-interests in the background and you put Krishna in front. So by doing that, you can easily serve the Lord with devotees and make the best out of everything, actually. And also, there's one point of being attached to service. Of course, attachment to service can be good to some extent, but if there is some material elements again influencing it, for example, your ego, if someone is thinking, I am the only one who is able to do this service and no one else is qualified, eventually that can lead to an ego problem and attachment in the negative sense. And if such an attachment grows in service, it's very unfavorable for everyone's Krishna consciousness. Then you start to even offend devotees. And His Holiness Radharad Maharaj, he was mentioning this one point. Whatever you do, do not offend devotees. He was actually stressing on this point quite a lot. And he was giving an analogy on a father and two sons. So the father is laying down and two sons are massaging him on each side. And then eventually one son starts to poke the father and pinch him in order to the father to think that the other son is actually harming him and him to be the best. So in this instant you can see the father is the one who is supposed to be served. Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki. So the father in this instant is the one who is receiving the service from his two sons. But one wants to harm the other, and he wants the one who's pinching the father, he wants the father to think that the other one is actually performing the service in a bad manner, and he does not want the father to get a good massage. So now in this instant, who is suffering? The father is suffering. Why is he suffering?
Because both are fighting.
Exactly. So now there's a conflict, and in the end, we can apply this also in our spiritual life. If two devotees fight over service, the ones who are actually affected by it are the spiritual master and the Lord himself. So in this sense, we should put away our differences in a material sense. And even if we may get some credit by doing such service, we may get some prestige, but then if someone blames us, then we may be happy. If we get credit, we may be happy in the first place, but as soon as we get blamed for something we didn't do in the right way, we are all of a sudden very offended and very sad. So there this part of being humble comes in again. So if you want detachment from how do I put this? Detachment from success. Let me rephrase this 1 second. Yeah, let's say it like this. Don't be attached to the success, so there will be no pain in failure. So if you're attached to the success or some sort of credit, you will always feel some sort of pain whenever you get criticized. But if you're not attached to it, you will always be free from it. And there's a perfect verse which applies to it in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, text number 47. Karmani vadikaraste ma phaleshu katanchana ma karma phala hetur bhur ma te sango stva karmani. There Krishna says, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So Krishna here again says that we should give up the fruits of our activities and duties and not be attached to anything. Because if attachment forms, there is also some sort of ego involved in it, most of the times. And in that sense, offending a devotee is actually one of the greatest offenses in our spiritual life. If you have some slip-ups personally due to anger, lust, greed, it's okay. But if you direct those anger, lust, and greed towards a devotee, Krishna won't be happy at all by that. And for that, there is actually one really famous example of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. So Ambarish Maharaj gets offended by Durvasa Muni, but he doesn't take it seriously. But then the Sudarshan Chakra chases Durvasa Muni everywhere. So he runs to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is not able to help. He runs to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is not able to help. He even runs to Lord Vishnu. But Lord Vishnu is even not helping him. Why? Because he offended the devotee. And then Lord Vishnu tells him to directly go to Ambarish Maharaj and ask for forgiveness. So that's eventually what Durvasa Muni does. And then after Ambarish Maharaj forgives him, Durvasa Muni, the Sudarshan Chakra stops chasing him. So in this instant, the Lord doesn't help at all, because once you offend the devotee of the Lord due to some misunderstandings or some miscommunication in this indication, for example, the Lord won't help any individual if they offend the devotee. So to summarize, I can say that the unity of devotees to serve the Lord is most important, and being humble is the second most important part of this verse here, and then not being attached to anything. That's the third point I want to make. So yeah, that was pretty much everything I had prepared to share. If there is some comments, please go ahead.
The thing you explained about the massaging is actually a letter from Prabhupada, yeah?
I think so, yeah.
It's on the calendar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I read it in February, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for sharing. If there are no comments, questions, then yes, please.
About this cooperation,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult because in the material world we are used to compete with
Mm-hmm.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we should understand that what we are cooperating for.
Mm.
We are not cooperating for eating, sleeping, mating and defending.
Mm.
Of course, deity worship, we are all cooperating in that also. But in this Prabhupada is that there is tendency to lean towards material things. That's why there is no unity.
Mm.
There can be unity also in material world, but
Mm.
that's not what we are looking for. He said that one must come to the spiritual platform and then real unity is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in material sense, there can be never real unity.
Not unity, but some kind of, exchange.
Exchange can always be there. But yeah, unity to form is impossible unless the goal is the same. But the goal in material sense can never be same. Everyone is individual and they have different interests. But in spiritual sense, if you have Krishna as a center, the goal is the same for everyone. So everyone's goal is to serve the Lord, to please Him. So and then in such a sense, when everyone comes together to serve the Lord, then a real unity forms. As in this verse, the perfect example, the sons of King Prachina Brahishad. So they come together, they do this austerity for 10,000 years, they serve the Lord, and then eventually the Lord is very pleased, and then He appears in front of them, and then He even grants them any benediction. He doesn't say much, He just goes there and says, I will grant you any benediction, I'm satisfied with your service. So this is a very significant thing for us even in our day-to-day life in Krishna consciousness. To remind ourselves that we should actually cooperate with each other in order to serve the Lord. Thank you for sharing. Okay, then thank you very much for attending today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.